Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay guys, I'm going off national way for the weekend. So I guess this will be the upload for the weekend. Anyway, there's a lot of food for thought in this presentation by High Truth. So it's a very interesting vlog. We may as well watch this together, and then I'm packing my bags, and I guess I'll be back Sunday/Monday. Anyway.
During the time which there were some Antarctic fault movement, a lot of earthquakes along the Antarctic perimeter, we went and started monitoring the very far north because we had felt that this brown dwarf, that we've been tracking every single symptom that it can create. And you can see what has happened. Look at that beautiful arc all across the North Pole there. That is just a beautiful signature, almost mirrored what was happening in the Antarctic at that time. So this thing may have really tracked lower as it closes in. But make no mistake about this. This is kind of disappointing. Look at the counts in the middle. The graphs change. Sometimes they go up to 40. Sometimes it goes up to 50. Sometimes it goes up to 60. And so it's really hard to grasp the total count of particles coming in. These nice, smooth, double humps, every astronomer on the planet Earth will tell you that's a helium signature. But look at that. It says warning dark 42, and this one says warning dark 41.5. That's that dotted line. So that dotted line is a warning line. So if that dotted line is a warning line, then what the heck is it when the graph goes all the way off the charts? And then you look at the sun itself, you just walk out and look at the sun, and it can blind you. Even not direct sunlight is now blinding. Reflections are blinding. The nice yellow sun that you used to watch and take pictures of, you can't even see it through a pair of sunglasses. You need 2 pairs of sunglasses. And that's if you're lucky. And this glare is prominent. You can't even look in the direction of the sun now. Everybody sees it going on. And, you know, your toaster can blind you, but then so can a cruise ship. It's crazy how bright and white the sun is. And these are actual live cams from various parts of Mexico. Well, we showed you those humps of helium, and when they hit oxygen and other parts of our ozone, they destroy the ozone, but they also create neutrons, and most of the neutrons are being created where? In the South Pole. People say our magnetosphere has collapsed, but look at the green line. That's like a Y component on an XYZ 3D model of the solar system. So that component is going up to 100 nanoteslas during our collapse. So we did not lose our magnetosphere. It shifted. It actually shifted. And I'm sorry about the confusing statements I made about this. I'm going to defer this to most people, but you know, the XY, when you're looking straight down from the North Pole of the solar system or the Earth, that's the axis that you look down. It's called the Z-axis, and then the XY are in the same plane, but the X is towards the sun. The bottom graph, the ZY component, is as if your chest was the sun and you're looking at the Earth from that direction. So the Z is north-south and the Y goes out into the solar system. So you can see along which directions these fluxed, and you can see that it's quite obvious that these things are coming in off the Y-axis and the Z-axis, which is a north-south component. So the reason the neutrons are important is only because they're the most destructive particle in the universe. And they don't last very long. They decompose rather quickly and then therefore release a lot of radiation. Here's a couple things of what I've been talking about. This is ACE, and look at the constant noise in the X-rays. What is that from? And when you look at the X-rays being recorded off the sun, you're wondering where these X-rays are coming from, and they do correspond with the helium spikes that we've showed you over and over and over again. But look at the protons. I mean, the protons aren't really fluxing very much, so it has nothing to do with the sun. Protons come from the sun. And when you look at the magnetic component, they show you the BZ and the BT component, but they don't show you that third component that we showed you. And that bottom graph is the speed, and you can see during our magnetosphere collapse, the speed went down. That was on 1013 and 1014, and it's not a collapse, I'm sorry, a compression. And then we had a huge spike in the speed, and during that time we saw our magnetosphere do some crazy things, but there was always a charge and a power being emitted in our magnetosphere. The Earth hasn't stopped spinning, and the magma in the center hasn't all rose to the surface yet. So we're still generating a magnetic field. What you're seeing is it being stretched in a component that most people don't even talk about, in that vector or that plane. But on the 13th and the 14th, we got hit by a wave of particles. Supposedly, it collapsed our magnetosphere. We saw the ionization going on. I've showed you that. But look, the speed went way down. So how does a wave of particles hit your planet at such a slow speed that's below what a coronal hole stream is? And what happens is our magnetosphere went crazy in the wrong direction. Our BZ component and BX components, they went kind of flat. But some people call it the BY component, which is blue, went up. I mean, that's nobody looks at the total charge. And so the bottom line is we didn't lose our magnetosphere. It got compressed and stretched by a bunch of particles that wasn't hydrogen, and it wasn't just the sun. And here's what's happening to the solar system. This is what I started to make the video about in the first place. This is what we saw last night, November 2nd. We saw almost a crescent, a new moon, crescent moon, whatever you want to call it, but the whole moon was lit up like a lunar eclipse, and it was directly above Saturn. In fact, what we saw was more accurately depicted like this, and the ecliptic that is commonly being shown you is a lie. Here's the ecliptic right here. Every astronomer knows this. The moon is still below the ecliptic. It cannot ever be above the ecliptic, or it shouldn't be. So the moon is about less than 2 degrees below the ecliptic, will not reach the ecliptic until a nodal period. A nodal period is supposed to come, I believe, 2018. I'm just venturing a guess, but the moon has not crossed over the ecliptic yet, which it does every 9 years. So the moon is below the ecliptic, Saturn's below the moon, and Venus is below Saturn. So we were theorizing that Saturn should be affected, and everybody was putting the wrong inclination on Saturn. And this is actually a more accurate representation of where the ecliptic is the yellow line we drew for you. Okay, so who draws an ecliptic and puts the moon above the ecliptic? Who does that? That's even in a... And if you go out tonight, it should be, they say, over Venus. But the bottom line is both Saturn and both Venus are below the moon. Look at the moon. The moon is defining the ecliptic for you guys. So go out, watch the moon set tonight, and that's where the ecliptic is. The moon is telling you where the ecliptic is, and the bottom line is if you rely on these simulations to figure out what's going on in the solar system, you're gonna miss everything because these people put the moon above the ecliptic. OMG, mouth wide open. I mean, it's disgusting what mainstream is putting out. We're having one geomagnetic storm after another. It's the KP index is lighting up like Christmas, only purple seems to be the new blue. And we're having one geomagnetic storm after another. Most of them are not being predicted, but they're happening almost on a daily basis. How could you not predict them? And they're being under-predicted. And we were wondering if we were going to get to an 8 or a 9, and we did. OMG again. And the KP index is a measure of geomagnetic disturbances. It's created by particles. We showed you it's not protons. So what the heck is doing it? And most people are going to say coronal hole streams, and that is true. But the thing that is amazing is when the spikes in particles also is associated with a spike in speed. They usually run opposite of one another. The thinner the particles, the faster they run. But we had coronal hole streams, we had equatorial coronal holes all through our solar maximum, and we weren't seeing geomagnetic storms like this. Now it's a solar minimum, and these particles are coming out a little faster. But when you see a density spike that corresponds with a velocity spike, that is a change in the solar system. That's a second wave of particles that are now traveling in the same direction. The reason they flux back and forth, and you can see huge shifts in speed and direction. So because there's two sources of helium now, one neutral and one ionized, you're seeing huge helium signatures during certain times of the year when the winds are running in the correct directions. When they run oppositional, you don't notice this as much. But now it's going to be a wild. We're going to get constant radiation between 1 and 4 angstroms. That's pretty nasty stuff. We're going to get compressions of our magnetosphere that will go on and on and on for quite some time. But ladies and gentlemen, go out tonight and look at the moon and follow the moon the next couple nights. It will tell you roughly where the ecliptic is, and then you can see how far below the ecliptic the planets have become. So we will attach a link that shows you all the inclinations of all the planets, so that you can see how the moon is supposed to be near the ecliptic, and so should some other planets as well. But if you rely on other people to tell you what's going on, you might actually believe that the moon went above the ecliptic and Mars has suddenly gone below the ecliptic in just a matter of a few months. Especially if you go to earthsky.org, you'll never figure out what's going on.
Okay guys, Jazakallah khair wa ahsanul jaza. Some really well thought through points have been made in this presentation. It's alhamdulillah enough food for thought over the weekend. I've shared and highlighted some relevant bullet points in the science WhatsApp distribution list for you guys as well. Try to draw attention to this. Honestly, there's nothing conspiratorial about it. It's a real event that's happening, and sadly, we have got our eyes wide shut and we don't see it happening. But again, all I had to do is look into the horizon scan over the skies and find that there was all manner of shades in different directions of the skies, alluding towards different celestial bodies being the source of that. Anyway, Jazakallah khairan. I'm going to be away for the weekend, so I guess you guys ain't going to be overwhelmed and inundated with messages on your science, on the science distribution list, or even with my vlogs. I guess it gives you a bit of a breather, and I think we all need one from all of this. I guess I'm going to leave you with that. Keep me in your prayers, keep me in your du'as. Thank you very much. Jazakallah khairan wa ahsanul jaza for your time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.